This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
WESN.
Good morning and welcome to AM Prime. I'm Naomi McNish.
And I'm Jada McLeod.
This morning we have some very interesting conversations lined up. First, just to start off, we're going to start a little different this morning. I wanted to start off with a quote that's going to kind of set the tone for this first conversation. The quote reads, the old order changeth, yielding place to new. This is a quote from Dr. Eric Williams, taken from Alfred Lord Tennyson's poem, Ideals of the King. This quote highlights what, party succession, stepping aside for new leaders to come forth, which is what we're talking about this morning. And to help us unpack this discussion, we have Mr. Lloyd Taylor. He's a political scientist, an advocate for participatory democracy. Good morning, Mr. Taylor.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Taylor. So, can you just set the stage for us? What does the handing over of leadership within the executive branch look like in Trinidad and Tobago? Like, what does it entail?
Well, within the executive branch, you're talking about the government. The executive or the party?
Within government and party, if you can touch on both.
Well, the parties, we start with the parties have elections to change their leaders and a whole string of officers.
All right.
The government has rules that govern the change of leaders inside Parliament. And that is guided basically by the principle of who commands the majority in Parliament.
Right.
And in the PNM governments of Trinidad and Tobago, you've had different kinds of experience. You had a deputy governor, and we had following that we had George Chambers. We had some deputy government.
Mr. Taylor, you kind of going a little bit in and out there.
Not loud enough, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah. Hearing you better now.
Yeah, and we had Manning, and he would have had his chosen deputies. We had Keith Rory and his chosen deputy. Then we had was then the United Labour Front that became the UNC United National Congress. We had Pandey and we had an acting deputy, and then we had Kamala Bissessa and Sam Bissessa, and she would have had a series of acting deputy prime ministers, all provided for in the Constitution of Trinidad.
All right. Mr. Taylor, we know change is inevitable. So from your perspective, why is succession planning crucial for the stability and growth of a political party?
I don't know how we should take that question. Succession planning is very valid for families who want to pass their assets on to their heirs and successors. It's very valid for business entities of any kind, whether they're corporate entities, whether they are partnerships. Even I would say a sole trader might want to pass on his business to an heir that he appoints. Succession planning in politics is it's a different kettle of fish. And a lot depends on a few attributes. Who owns the party? Is the party owned by a handful of people, or one man? Is the party owned by the members of the party? And is the party owned by the financiers of the party? And depending on what answer you give to that question, then we can handle the issue of succession planning as you pose it. But succession planning in political parties, I would agree, is a very important exercise. But it is not, it depends on the structure of the party, basically, and who owns it. And depending on what type of ownership of the party you have, then you have to have an appropriate succession planning that deals with that.
Okay.
But it's important. I'm not saying it's not important.
It is.
If you want me to amplify on that, you can let me know.
Yes,
Let me show
definitely.
you. You take the stage.
Okay. If the party is owned by one man, as it was thought to be the case with the People's National Movement, because Williams founded the party and Williams invested in the party, even though he had a pretty decent team of individuals who wanted change in Trinidad and Tobago, who wanted to move from colonial status to independent status, and it was generally thought the party was his. So that when he decided to leave in 1973, people vied independently for the party, and the most obvious candidate in those days was Carl Hudson Phillips, the late Carl Hudson Phillips. And we can talk about the PNM as the best example of that. Before the PNM, what we really had was, and parties were really, in his own description, parties were really collections of individuals. They weren't really structured as a political instrument with a clear executive, a general council, and membership with annual AGMs. All right?
Yes.
So if the individual owns the party, then the succession planning would be like a business. You select the person you want and you anoint them. If it is a properly constructed political party where the members are thought to own the party, A, and B, where the institutions inside the party, the executive, the general council, the various standing and the various subcommittees, if that exists, then succession planning is a much more complicated issue. For example, you can't simply in the latter description of what a party represents, you can't simply select an individual and make them the successor to the leader. And it's not the leader, it would not be the leader's responsibility to do that as well. Yet one has to make a distinction between government and politics. Whereas you can change, you're a leader of a government who might be the political leader of an existing party, can appoint in his or her view, a suitable candidate to deputize for him and perhaps become the prime minister, that's not the same thing as the party apparatus selecting a leader from inside the party, who then becomes the political leader and who then becomes.
Mr. Taylor, I have a question. Do you think that right now, with the political parties that we have, that it's evenly distributed between, say, a mixture of the younger generation, younger people, and the older people? Do you think that is an even distribution?
I can't make that judgment. I wish I could. I can't make that. I can't say there's an even distribution. What I have seen from observation is that there's a growing tendency for a younger generation to join the political party and to become members of parliament. Right. In both parties, you have more and more young people. The problem that, from my observation, is that it is still weighted in favor of mature adults, males and females, who still dominate the parties. And most times they dominate the parties because they bring superior skill and superior abilities than the younger generation. But,
Mr. Taylor, just for some context, so recently Colin Imbert would have made a statement that the next electoral term would be his last, and then Prime Minister Keith Rowley highlighted the importance of knowing when to step aside. So a statement like that, how would you interpret it when it comes to the succession or, planning for a new leader, etc.?
Mr. Imbert, he's an older person. He said he was quoted as saying once, he was reminded as having said that by the time you reach 60, you should leave. You should leave politics. And then he's nearer to 65 or thereabouts. And you would ask about it, but he said it, and he explained that he wanted to do, there were still some outstanding issues in this constituency that he wanted to attend to.
Yes.
And he needed another 5 years to attend to that. He needed various kinds of services. It is important, as Dr. Rowley said, that you have to know when to leave. And it's not an easy question because you still have to ask what replaces it. And what replaces it? It is not an answer that can be supplied by anointing somebody as the leader. A serious political party, well organized in the constituency, plan and program, and an electable cadre of persons must be organized in a way to throw up leaders from the rank and file.
Yes.
So that you don't have to hand-pick somebody. If the party is properly organized in the communities, in the constituency, and I mean by that, if there is open, transparent discussion, there is genuine free speech, there is a proper and relevant training/education program, particularly in the issues we call politics, then automatically what you're going to have is a number of individuals, not just one, vying for leadership of the political party.
Yes.
And in other words, the way you organize the party, embedded in that organization, is your succession planning program.
Yes. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the training and education program within the political party?
Okay, one has to first of all take a historical context. It is said when Dr. Eric Williams decided to let his bucket down, in his own words, he brought a lot of historical references to challenge the colonization of Trinidad and Tobago and indeed the Caribbean. And he brought skills and abilities related to historical training to articulate that. But he did a lot of that as open political education. That's where he started. And the PNM, well, the movement before the PNM did have an education society where issues of national import were discussed. Inside the party itself, he was, unfortunately, remained the voice of one. Because at the annual conventions of the PNM, the most important statement really came from the leader, the political leader of the party, who then also was the prime minister, the premier, and then the prime minister of the country. What we need, however, is, and we need to design, and the parties need to design an education program that details training that is consistent with the effort to decolonize the country in all aspects. Political decolonization, economic and social decolonization. For example, if we inherited, as we have in Trinidad and Tobago, a fragmented society with different ethnicities, one of the tasks of that education program would be to prepare people to understand the society and to devise policies and programs to enhance national unity. That's one example. In terms of the economics, we will have to understand the history of the economic development of these countries. And we know from analysis done by Professor Arthur Lewis, we know by analysis done by Lloyd Best, that we have had economies dominated by foreign enterprise, foreign capital, etc., emerging out of slavery. So you need an education program that helps you to understand what are the bottlenecks in that inherited economic structure and how we can transform it.
All right.
In my judgment, we have had not much of that. That has taken place in one party in Trinidad and Tobago, I know. But a lot of that has not been done at all, and that remains to be done.
All right. So just some countries like South Korea have implemented age limits for political office holders to ensure fresh perspectives or avoiding autocracy. So do you believe that there's a merit in introducing strict age limits or term limits for political leadership in Trinidad and Tobago?
I wouldn't introduce age limits. I don't think there's much of a merit in age limits. I mean, if you look at China, the history of Chinese party coming through Mao Zedong, most of the best leaders are really people in their late 60s and 70s. We have had a lot of that, and they bring more wisdom. And they're properly trained too. They're not just senior in age. They're really senior in wisdom. And if you have to have an age limit, then you have to have a way of tapping into the skills and abilities of those senior persons. Just for example, like the West Indies cricket team. We have had a lot of senior people. That's why we had to bring back Frank Worrell, and we have to bring back and rely on the eminence of a lot of great West Indian players to give the young people perspective and more skills and abilities. So I would say, in quick answer to your question, one has to be careful with having a rigorous hard and fast rule about age and term limits.
I understand.
A lot depends on the capability of the individual and how their mind works. I mean, we have had a real issue in the Democratic Party in America, where we had a party leader and president in beyond the early stage Alzheimer's. And we have to have a way of recognizing if the person is ill or not. We have to make it for presidency or prime ministership. You have to have monitoring systems that take account of that from very early. So that is why it's also important that citizens are apprised at every point in time on the health status of the individuals who control the executive power.
Mr. Taylor, we do have to start wrapping up, but I just have one more question for you. With respect to the party, do you think it is somewhat the responsibility of MPs to identify and groom their successor to kind of help with that succession planning within the party?
Yes, but not only the MPs. It is very important, especially in countries like Trinidad and Tobago, that came out of a history of colonial domination by the Foreign Office of the imperial country. What you get from that is autocracy. And what you really need is for individual MPs to bring themselves up to scratch, as it were, to the extent that that is possible on their own initiative, given all that they have to do. And also for the parties to organize a training program that brings them up to scratch. But generally, I would say, if the parties are properly organized and there is an effective training and education program related to the specific demand of the society for social and economic transformation, that will happen automatically because the training program inside the party will take account of that.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Taylor, for joining us on the program this morning. The conversation was very enlightening. I think we learned a lot from this. Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me as well.
Yes. Thank you, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You're very welcome. Bye.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue on with a conversation with Mr. Gregory Fernandez. We'll be right back.
SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner. FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust. Prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
we are tackling the hard-hitting topics. Some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God. So we kind of at a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's been the victim, or the man who's been the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
The Constitution doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia is responsible for looting the country, and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Welcome back to the program. This morning we're jumping straight in. We're talking about artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence is transforming the world at an unprecedented pace, influencing everything from industry and finance to politics and social interactions. With major developments such as China's DeepSeek AI platform challenging U.S. dominance, Elon Musk's high-stakes investment in OpenAI, and growing debates over AI regulation, the global AI landscape is shifting rapidly. But where does Trinidad and Tobago stand in all of this? Are we prepared for the opportunities and risks that AI presents? Today we're joined by Gregory Fernandez. He's the chair of the MSJ and a software expert to break down these critical issues and explore what AI means for our future. Good morning, Mr. Fernandez.
Morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
As AI is evolving rapidly with major developments like China's DeepSeek AI and Elon Musk's takeover of OpenAI, can you just talk a little bit, get into that, and what do these shifts mean for the future of AI in general?
Okay, so I think it's positive that China has entered the race formally. Now, China's been in AI for a long time, but they were thought to be behind the Americans significantly. And the Americans' philosophy was to have most of the AI platforms close to them so that they could have a significant advantage globally, right? Because there's a lot of talk that whoever controls AI will control the world in the future because of the powerful nature of artificial intelligence. Now, the Chinese, on the other hand, is saying that we should have a shared common prosperity. That's what their president has been saying for some time. And their approach to AI is completely different to the Americans. So the release of DeepSeek 3 R1, that has opened it up to the world because it was released open source. It means that every country, every university, every person, because they have released several models, some can run actually on your laptop, on your phone, and so on. And they have opened up this to the whole world. So there's significant opportunity for a number of countries to engage in proper use of AI development, and get a share of the opportunity that AI presents.
Yeah, Mr. Fernandez, there was a recent AI Action Summit in Paris, and they focused on regulating AI.
Sure.
What are the main concerns about AI regulation, and where do you think that this global debate can head?
Right, and again, we have two perspectives, right? So the global South and Europe is saying that it needs to be regulated, but it has to be regulated in the interest of everyone. So the proposal from the global South and China, which is one of the major players, was that it should be done under the auspices of the United Nations, so that everybody participates and that there's global regulation. The Americans are saying no. They wanted to do their own regulation of the AI, which obviously would be regulated in their interests, right? So the Europeans, they were the first to come out with a regulatory framework. But again, normally when these things are done by one group, it tends to focus on their strengths and make it more difficult for others to be able to participate in the realm within their environment, right? So there's a call by the Global South, headed by China, to have it under the auspices of the UN, right? So even though, and it is required. I mean, AI, we use AI all the time. I use AI in my business. And, AI can hallucinate, as they say.
Yes.
And that's one aspect of it. And then AI is becoming very powerful, where you have instances where AI has cloned itself, AI has lied to get out of situations where it feels it is threatened, and so on. So it can pose great dangers going forward, the more powerful it gets. So there is need for regulation.
Yeah. So with threats like hallucination, what are some steps, however small they may be, that we as a small island nation, or even within the context of CARICOM, can take to efficiently integrate AI into our lives?
Right. So I think that I think everybody's using some form of AI nowadays. At least a lot of people. They're using ChatGPT, and now they have the DeepSeek.
Yes.
The issue really is within they have what you call guardrails already built into some of these products. But the guardrails that are built in, it's come like how history is written. If you are the person in control of history, or you are the power behind the narrative, you will tend to obscure facts that may be detrimental to you. So, for example, I was asking the ChatGPT about Maurice Bishop from Greendot, and it came back and told me he's a controversial figure and they have no information. Right? You ask DeepSeek about Tiananmen Square, it does the same thing. Now, for the Caribbean, I suppose what we would need to do is to use the open source versions of DeepSeek, because ChatGPT is not available in open source. And then what we can do is basically, once it's open source, it means you have access to train it. Yes. And even though it will have its basic training built in, we will be able to broaden the perspective and put it in the realm of what is important to us in this region. right? So I have been, for example, using it to do music, and it was very difficult for me to get it to sound as like soca,
Yes.
or proper calypso on the platform, on one of those AI-based platforms, and I had to train it to the extent now that I can get very good soca. In fact, next year I'm planning to challenge for the road march.
Looking forward.
I actually have some songs on the radio, but because it's the first year, I said I'll ease up the guys.
So the integration of AI using government resources is kind of a long ways from now. So would AI be dangerous if it were privatized, or should that be something that we prioritize?
Well, the thing is, to me, the better way is for it to be open source, right? But that the country has some kind of perspective of, you see, for example, in this election coming up here in Trinidad, I expect to see AI being used to push a number of false narratives, right? Because with AI, you can have someone being impersonated. You can take a picture of someone and put it in a lip sync scenario with AI and have them saying something they never said, all right? That's possible.
That's where the regulation would come in.
So to put on guardrails for Trinidad and the Caribbean is going to be a bit difficult because we don't really control the technology. And it will really be up to the governments would have to create a code of responsible actions to be done through AI and then bring it within a legal framework so that people could be charged for abuse and so on. Similar to how when you do certain things on the internet, you're still subject to the courts.
Yes. Mr. Fernandez, so you would have, well, Trinidad and Tobago has no national AI policy, right?
They need to develop one,
right.
definitely.
So how critical is that for us to develop that?
Well, I think it's very, because we're going to see the first use or abuse of AI in these elections coming up here. And it will be quite clear to everyone
in that respect,
how dangerous this can be. Yeah.
What should the policy focus on if we were to create a policy?
Well, I would think the use of it in terms of ethical standards, moral standards, things like that, right? That it's not used for abuse and other things like that. Because I mean, what AI is really about is AI is about the whole human history of knowledge, right? And it has been trained on everything that we as a species have come to put out there as knowledge developed through our experiences. And it allows you to then take that and advance it further. So you now have AI that can do deep research and allow you to operate at a doctoral level in terms of doing the type of research to bring about new products, new knowledge generally, solve diseases. So it can be used in every area, agriculture to improve product yields. There's no real limits to where it can be used, right? So it's a very powerful technology, and everybody's rushing to get onto it to try to get a competitive advantage or stay in the race, right, of business and so on. But there are the possibilities that some persons would abuse the capabilities of it to get an advantage. So in a policy framework, you have to look at all those areas where you feel there can be abuse to put those rails on.
With
right?
respect to the misuse of the AI in the general elections, are there any ways that we can guard against them?
Well, I mean, it's going to be, it depends on how far they go because, you know, there's voice technology with AI where you can take somebody's voice, train the AI on it, and then have them say words that you never said. No, you can also train video to represent someone and have it look like them. And it will be, you know, whether all members of the public will be able to discern what is truth from what is not truth is going to be interesting and difficult, I would say, for most members of the public.
Mr. Fernandez, sorry, but then that's my next question, right? Are you able to tell when something is AI generated, or how easy is it for us to know if it's AI generated?
It is becoming more and more difficult, right? I remember even in terms of doing the songs I do, that initially some people could say, well, okay, that's an AI voice. But now they say, well, no, that's Patrice singing there, that's Marshall, etc. And you can't really tell the difference.
We do have to start wrapping up. I definitely think that this is a conversation that we can continue to have. But before we close off, can we just quickly talk about AI versus job security? So using AI to enhance jobs rather than to replace jobs, is that possible?
Right. So, okay. So in my organization, I have a software development company. We are in the area of HRIS and so on, right? We have built our own. And we are actually rebuilding the product now to be AI first, meaning that there were a number of things that we do right now where I have staff at the office who do project management, training, implementation specialists who would help configure the product and reports and so on. Now, AI could do all of those things. So we are building agents into the software that can do those things and be multimodal. So you will actually talk to it. You don't have to type in your instructions to the AI, right? And the AI will actually be guiding you, giving you spreadsheets to download, to fill in, upload, and then it would look at the data, fix it, and update the application and so on. So we are using it. I've not released any stuff. What we are doing is using it to scale. So before, where we could only do about 24 projects a year, with the AI built as agents into the software, we can scale to hundreds of new projects, or thousands, you know, globally, which is how I'm using it. So I'm using it to scale, not necessarily to replace anyone, but the technology can. So I know call centers, for example, you know, they have to actually move up to something new that you need human interaction at a certain level than low-level skills where the AI could completely do what is necessary. So there will be disruption, and that disruption will increase based on the power of the AI together with other technologies that are going to come into the workforce environment over the next couple of years. And I'm talking about humanoid robots and so on.
So seeing as the AI is here and it's here to stay, do you, and let me just pick your brain here, do you currently think we have the right people in positions of power to lead us into this AI revolution?
You're asking me to make a political statement.
No, just what's your opinion?
So, well, the thing is that they would need to be briefed as to the power of this thing and the possibilities, and then a perspective on how it's going to impact different sectors of the economy, right? And then there will have to be some policy alignment on how far you want to go, because, you know, there's this talk about universal basic income, that AI will get so powerful and take so many jobs that people will have to be provided with a universal basic income as a starting point, because the work week in the future, 30 years out, 40 years out, maybe reduced from 5 working days to 2 working days, or because AI is so productive that it then overtakes human production, right? Human productivity, and generates what you are saying would be like limitless possibilities. So, all of that perspective and all of that needs to come into play, because particularly when the humanoid robots come into widespread, they're going to be like ubiquitous, like how you have cell phone, everybody going to have robots and so on. And it would lead to a whole different way of living. Yeah?
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez, we do have to wrap up now. It was a pleasure having you on the program this morning. This is a conversation that I think we can do a part 2 of once you're available. Part 2 and 3.
That's fine. That's fine.
We have a lot more to ask you and to unpack on this topic.
Sure.
Yeah.
No problem.
But thanks so much, and I do hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
And same to you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're joined by Dr. Chad Bisamba for a very
interesting,
well, some people might say controversial topic, but let's not go there this morning. We'll be right back.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. Before we even start this repatriation and reintegration process that we've already failed, or are we doomed to fail?
You've got to invest in the institutions that you've established to carry out those sorts of core functions.
We now get into the regional updates to give you an understanding of what's happening across our neighboring islands.
We have available a number of films that are worth showing.
So it was day one when the French Revolution started to develop the concept of universal human rights.
What happened this time is unprecedented. It's one of the largest terrorist attacks in history.
Let's welcome Carl to the program. Carl is over there next to himself. Hello, Carl.
Silky anteater or pygmy anteater, and we have 2 of the 3 species of anteaters right here.
Money is something we all deal with, but how many of us truly understand it? What if you could make better decisions with your money? Decisions that secure your future, protect your family, and bring you peace of mind. I'm Darren Jacobs, and I'm here to help you make sense of your dollars. Welcome to Dollars and Cents, the show that breaks down the financial world in ways that matter to you. No jargon, no confusion, just real conversations about money, your money. So join me every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on WESN for Dollars and Cents.
And welcome back to the program. This morning, for our last conversation, we had joined by Dr. Chad Bisamba. He is an endocrinologist, and he's here to talk to us about Ozempic. And Ozempic is something that has been trending for some time. It came about from, well, it started trending, I believe, from celebrities using it for weight loss. But we're here with Dr. Chad to understand properly what this Ozempic is and what it's really used for medically. So Dr. Chad, good morning and thank you for joining us.
Hi, morning Naomi. Thanks for having me on. So So Ozempic, right? Everyone knows Ozempic. It was actually approved in 2017 for treatment of type 2 diabetes, right? Drugs like these have been actually out since 2005. But Ozempic was one of the first ones that had a really good unintended side effect, which was weight loss. And that's where, you know, the fad sort of started, you know, so it became really popular after that. However, it was never intended to be used for weight loss. It was intended for type 2 diabetes treatment.
Yes.
But since a lot of patients began to lose weight, they looked into why that was, and it actually worked on the stomach to help delay gastric emptying. So you have food in your stomach for a longer period, you feel really full. And it also works on the appetite centers of your brain to sort of shut appetite down. So subsequently to Ozempic, it was actually marketed as another drug called Wegovy at a higher dose of the semaglutide drug. So that's pretty much the background of Ozempic and how it became so popular.
Right. Dr. Bisamba, can you answer this? How dangerous is the misuse of Ozempic?
Well, any drug could be dangerous if not supervised by a specialist, I would say. For instance, when I worked in England, if I were to prescribe a drug like this, you had to be at a certain, in a certain specialty. You had to be an endocrinologist, diabetologist. If another specialist, like say a cardiologist, were to prescribe this drug, an alert would come up on the system saying that, okay, this person should not be prescribing this drug.
Okay.
So any drug, if misused or not used under the supervision of the appropriate specialist, of course it could cause harm, you know.
Yeah.
And you would see a lot of stuff on social media about side effects of these drugs, but if used correctly, it's generally safe.
So the Ministry of Health has stated that Ozempic is not registered for sale in Trinidad and Tobago. What is that? Why do you think that is? What does that mean? How bad is the drug per se if it's used for medically for type 2 diabetes and that treatment? Why is it not registered here?
Really good question. So from what I have heard, the drug is made by a company called Novo Nordisk. They're located in Denmark, right? From what I've heard, the demand for the drug is so high across the world that they don't have enough supply to actually send to other countries, and that's why the drug can't get registered in Trinidad. At least that's what I have heard. I don't think anyone is trying to prevent the drug from being registered. I just don't think there's enough Ozempic or similar drugs to be sent out to new countries right now. And this is what I heard from AMCO, who work with Novo Nordisk and are the distributors of drugs from Novo Nordisk.
Oh, right. So without proper regulation of this drug, how can the public be certain that Ozempic is being sold locally safely? Because we're being honest here, you can still get the drug locally, whether it be under the table, whether it be from being outsourced. What are the risks in getting a drug that can be tampered with or laced with something else, or sold off as being Ozempic, but it's truly not?
Yeah, really good point, Naomi. There are certain forms of the drug called compounded formulations, so compounded semaglutide, right? So basically, Ozempic has a patent, right? You can't just create a generic form. It's actually illegal, right? But what certain labs or companies may be doing, they take a little bit of semaglutide and they mix it with other drugs, and they call it a compound. So technically isn't a generic of Ozempic, it's a bit of semaglutide mixed with other things, right? But in my opinion, semaglutide is a prescription drug. And a prescription drug should be prescribed by a medical doctor, who is registered with the Medical Board of Trinidad. So regardless of whether it's Ozempic or compounded semaglutide, I think it should be prescribed by a medical doctor, preferably in the field of endocrinology and diabetes. Now, the other question is, if the drug isn't registered, how could it be prescribed by someone?
Right.
So there are appropriate channels to get drugs like these prescribed. So it has to go through, for instance, if I want, I think a patient would benefit from it, I would write a prescription, and the patient, sometimes we work with pharmacists who have special importation licenses from the Ministry of Health and the Food and Drug Division. And I would also have to write a letter to the CMO, Dr. Parashuram, saying, okay, this is why I want to use the drug, and that the patient would be under my supervision while using the drug. So there are appropriate channels to get non-approved drugs for patients in Trinidad. And this would be the original Ozempic drug, not any compounded versions.
Right. So, Dr. Bisamba, just to reiterate and just to understand better, the weight loss aspect of Ozempic is due to a side effect of the drug. That's a side effect, correct?
Well, we call it a side effect, but it was never intended for weight loss. But they found that during the clinical trials, a lot of people reported weight loss or feeling full, and then they kind of delved into why that was. So on the stomach, there's these receptors similar to the pancreas called the GLP-1 receptors, and these drugs work on those receptors, and it sort of delays stomach emptying. So food stays on your stomach for a longer period. So you just feel to eat very small amounts of food. And some people eat one meal or one small meal even for the day and they feel full. So at the end of the day, it is an appetite suppressant over anything else. So it actually was a safe way for people to lose weight. And of course, now FDA approved as Wegovy higher strength semaglutide for obesity.
Right. In your opinion, is this something that you would recommend or endorse per se for individuals to use the Ozempic drug for weight loss?
Well, what I would say before any Ozempic or semaglutide is prescribed, a patient should have a consultation with a specialist, full history, full examination, probably do the appropriate investigations, and if the patient fits the certain criteria, it can be considered, of course, yes. It is FDA approved, and once a specialist recommends it or prescribes it and think it would benefit the patient, it certainly can be used.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. Do you think the government should begin regulating this drug? I know you said, well, the reason being for it not being sold locally or legally in Trinidad is due to
scarcity.
Yeah, scarcity of the drug.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't know if possibly if the drug was not scarce, I mean, would it be sold locally?
Yeah. Well, would it be sold locally, and how would the government go about regulating it if they were to consult with you?
Well, I mean, that's not my area, but I think the benefits of these drugs are so great at the moment. So recently there was evidence that it actually it protects the kidneys. Recent study called the FLOW study proved that. It also protects against fatty liver disease. It also helps people who have atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. And of course, it was made for type 2 diabetes. So in our population, you could imagine we have so many patients with type 2 diabetes who do have kidney disease and do have cardiac disease. So I can't see why the ministry would not want to get this drug registered. I would certainly, whatever I could do, I would certainly try to push for that. But I think registration processes could take a really long time. Again, it's not my area of expertise. And this is not just with Ozempic, there's many other drugs that are first-line drugs for many conditions that still aren't registered. But maybe you could get someone from the ministry on to have a further chat about that. But I would certainly want to help and push for this drug to get registered, if I can.
It seems like this drug is almost like a magic drug. It does everything.
Yeah.
What are the ethical considerations for healthcare professionals? Say let's say it's been registered and it's able to be used. What are the ethical considerations for healthcare professionals like yourself when it comes to prescribing Ozempic?
Well, that's a good question. So, Ozempic is a prescription drug like any other drug, right? There are certain indications for the drug and there are certain contraindications to the drug. Specialists like myself who have experience with these drugs, if a patient fulfills the criteria for the drug and has no contraindications, of course it can be used. It's just like, using an antibiotic or using a blood pressure drug or cholesterol drug. At the end of the day, it's just a prescription drug like anything else. So once it's regulated by a specialist, I think it's safe. However, I would say specialists, and I mean diabetic endocrine specialist, not just a general doctor. As I said, in England, only endocrinologists or diabetologists were allowed to prescribe these drugs. So some of my colleagues, really, specialists in other field, they would feel more comfortable if I prescribe a drug rather than they prescribe a drug because I have a bit more experience with it. So it's a prescription drug like anything else. It's just, it's just type 2 diabetic drug, just like metformin, diamicron, insulin, So I don't think there's much ethical considerations, but you just have to be careful who you go to get this drug prescribed. And you should be under the care of an endocrine diabetes specialist as far as I am concerned.
As it relates to type 2 diabetes, what does this drug do exactly?
Yeah, good question. So it works on the pancreas. Now, of course, the pancreas is where insulin is made. So in patients with type 2 diabetes, it's either, a few things going on. Their pancreas isn't making enough insulin, or their body can't respond to the insulin as well as it should, called insulin resistance, right? So this drug works on the pancreas. After you eat, it helps the pancreas to basically send out more insulin into the bloodstream so that it helps the sugar in the blood basically to enter into the cells where the sugar is used for energy in the cells. So it lowers your blood sugar, puts sugar back into the cells for energy, essentially. So, however, in terms of long-term management of diabetes, with the weight loss that you get from the drug, it also helps with this insulin resistance, so your body actually uses insulin a bit better over time. So it sort of works in those two ways to help with blood sugar lowering.
So I just wanted to take the conversation into the broader spectrum of health as it relates to Trinidad and Tobago. How can we as a nation reduce our dependence on drugs and medication in general?
Well, excellent question. So Ozempic doesn't replace lifestyle measures. Of course, we have to be eating correctly. We have to be exercising regularly. So, but Ozempic, it has been now used around the world as sort of like a cheat code to lose weight. But you can't take Ozempic and eat whatever you want either. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. So lifestyle changes are the core of managing these illnesses. Ozempic gives you a sort of a little boost, I would say. But it doesn't replace lifestyle and it doesn't replace that. It doesn't replace exercise. So our patients need to be very well educated on these issues. You take a drive down the road, there's a double stand, there's a KFC. It's quite in our face a lot. But we have to be disciplined as a nation as well. We are at higher risk of type 2 diabetes, higher risk of hypertension. So I would say patient education is sort of the key, and we need to kind of get those that information out a bit more.
Yeah. Dr. Bisamba, has there been any stories or how to put this? Oh my gosh, sorry. And with respect to taking Ozempic for weight loss, even diabetes, are there any instances where this drug has become fatal for the patient or for the person taking it for whatever reason?
Okay. Excellent question. So there have been cases around the world basically of the drug being linked to a condition called pancreatitis, which is inflammation within the pancreas. Now, if somebody has a personal history of pancreatitis, for whatever reason, the most common causes would be alcohol use or gallstones. You have to be very wary with prescribing this drug because pancreatitis can be fatal. However, the company Novo Nordisk actually came out and said, well, we can't be certain that Ozempic caused the pancreatitis, but in those patients, could there have been other risk factors for pancreatitis? But the label would say on the drug, if you have a personal history of pancreatitis, better to avoid the drug, right? Because that could certainly be fatal. It has also been linked to a really rare form of thyroid cancer called medullary thyroid cancer. Now, that is really, really rare. I think 5% of all thyroid cancers, usually in a Eastern European, Caucasian population. Sometimes there's a genetic link with it, but again, the warning on the drug would say, okay, if you have a personal or a family history of medullary thyroid cancer, you probably should avoid using Ozempic. So those are the cases where it could potentially be life-threatening or fatal.
You said in certain instances, pharmaceutical companies or the manufacturer has like an onus on them to put something on the bottle, something on the label that says, if you have this, then maybe you shouldn't take this. Is that the only responsibility that pharmaceutical companies have when it comes to any misuse of their drugs?
Yeah, well, I mean, the most they could put is these black box warnings, right? But at the end of the day, on the ground level, it's sort of between the doctor and the patient. Every patient is different, and a doctor who knows about the drug, has to say, okay, well, I think this is safe for you, or I don't think this is safe for you, right? And that's what comes back to this term specialist. There's a reason why people specialize, and drugs like these, I think, should be given under specialist administration or specialist supervision. Again, I relate it to sort of like chemotherapy. Like, I won't go give chemotherapy to a patient. A cancer specialist or an oncologist has to give chemotherapy to a patient, right? So you have to know what you're doing as a doctor, and each patient is different. You have to take into account their entire medical history, and you have to know what you're doing essentially. So you can't just say, okay, Ozempic is for everyone, go and take it. You have to sit down with your doctor. Your doctor have to go through everything in detail, go through all the medications, go through your entire medical history, and then decide, okay, is this the drug for you or not?
All right, Dr. Bisamba, we just wanted to start wrapping up, but I had a question about what are some extra facts about Ozempic that the public would need to know about? Anything that we may not have asked? What do you think that you would like to share?
So as I said, it has a lot of other benefits apart from glucose lowering and weight loss. So it does protect the heart, it does protect the kidneys, it does help now with fatty liver disease. There's some studies now saying it could help with Alzheimer's, dementia, and even with alcohol misuse, right? So I mean, this drug is again, still fairly new. So they're discovering a lot of new things about it. What I would say is that if anyone in Trinidad has to go on a drug like this, they should seek out a specialist in endocrinology or diabetes, and go through the proper channels. You get proper history, proper exam, do your blood tests, and then you and your specialist speak about whether this drug is for you or not. I don't think the drug should be prescribed by non-medical personnel. I think that is reckless, and I don't think it's safe.
Yeah, I agree. So I know that you do mixed martial arts. I read that. Yeah?
I don't do mixed martial arts. I watch mixed martial arts.
You watch mixed martial arts. Have you ever tried it or wanted to try it?
No, but I think any form of exercise is useful, okay?
Well, I think that can wrap up this conversation with you, Dr. Bisamba. Thank you so much for joining us in the program this morning. I think we definitely learned a lot about this Ozempic drug, and it's not what we thought.
Yeah. I thought it was a scary thing going to stay away. I just need to talk to a doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but definitely, I guess for our viewers watching, if you had concerns or if you were interested or curious about this drug, I hope that this conversation kind of cemented an answer for you whether or not to take this drug for weight loss. Because I think as it started trending ever so often, we would kind of have that thought, I really want to go on Ozempic, you know.
Maybe you should.
Especially after seeing the Kardashians use it and getting the results that they got.
Exactly. But now we know the real healthcare behind it.
Yeah. But thank you, Dr. Bisamba, for joining us and sharing your expertise and knowledge with us this morning.
Okay, thank you all so much. You all have a good day.
You as well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, so we are going to wrap up the show this morning, but before we do, Jada and I are just going to cover really quickly everything that we did from this morning to now. We had some really good conversations that I think needed to be had.
Yeah.
You know,
a lot of lessons were definitely learned
starting
with Mr. Lloyd Taylor.
With Mr. Lloyd Taylor, we spoke about succession planning. Now, when you think about succession planning, it's definitely something that, as he said, you see it more in businesses, in companies. You see it
in churches even.
You know, so for a political party, the succession planning, as he said, is a bit different. It's a bit more complicated. There are steps, there are levels to having the right
persons in place, so the right structures in place.
For leaders to move up, to go forward, for new leaders to come in. And I think we are in a time where we're going to see that happening firsthand with the general elections coming up this year. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley talking about stepping down and not going forth in this electoral term.
Yes, I think we're pretty privileged to see that play out in real time, him stepping aside and giving Mr. MP Stuart Young his blessing to step up in his stead. I think that's actually a really great thing to witness. We don't see that a lot. Naomi, what do you think about the general public perception when it comes to age in politics, especially as a younger person? We always talk about promoting youth going into politics. So what do you think? What do you think?
In my opinion, I appreciate the older generation being the head. They have a lot that they can teach us. The younger generation, but it's always good to have youth, to have fresh minds coming up. I think especially in a generation where you have a lot of young leaders, and you have young leaders with a voice and with a lot of things to say, a lot of good things to say. So as the older generation, I mean, they can, yes, they teach us a lot. They can groom us, they can direct us. But in terms of politics, I do believe that giving a younger generation a chance to make a difference, make a change, to lead, it's possible. I mean,
it's necessary.
It's necessary. Yeah, I was reading this story with Barbados, with Maya Motley. The way Barbados transitioned before Maya Motley was the former prime minister was an older guy, and then when Maya Motley came in, she was a lot younger. You know, and that was an example of a successful transition of governance.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that we should always make sure to have some sort of planning, some sort of, next step, next people coming in. So we actually went on to talk about the conversation of AI. Yes, what does AI mean in Trinidad? Yeah, that was so fun.
We did not get to finish that conversation.
We will be having we need to be having a part 2. Yes, for sure. I really enjoyed that conversation. AI is actually a passion of mine, especially about how we use it, how we can use it in CARICOM, what it means for us gaining some sort of revenue. It's kind of moving away from the oil and gas sector and going back into we need to go back into more traditional traditional forms of revenue, but how can AI help that? How can technology help that?
And that's the thing, AI can be used on a vast scale to I don't think to necessarily replace, but we can definitely use it to enhance the economy, to even with regard to the energy sector. AI can be used in the energy sector to promote a higher stream of revenue for an economy, you know, but that is something that has to be researched. It has to be looked into, and hopefully Trinidad and Tobago can, you know, jump on that bandwagon, and hopefully we can
be the beneficiaries. Yeah,
exactly. You know,
I think we're quite capable. And then, you know, lastly, we had the conversation of Ozempic, the real Ozempic. Good to see Naomi for that topic. Like, good to see Naomi, the real Ozempic.
So this topic came about because I have a friend who, I recently saw her posting about Ozempic. She said that her dad uses it. He has type 2 diabetes, and he was prescribed this drug from his doctor. And she would take it, and she kind of was curious about using the Ozempic for weight loss, because I mean, you don't see it often. I think people who have this drug, they definitely don't flaunt it in Trinidad and Tobago. But and then I saw some people selling it as well, and I was curious about it. So individuals would sell this drug not prescribed for 4,000 TT. Why are we selling this drug for 4,000 TT?
It's in high demand. Everybody wants to look like Kim K.
Yeah. So out of curiosity, I said, you know, I think we do need to become more educated on what this drug is intentionally used for, and the risk in taking this drug for what you see in
pop culture.
And, you know, because it's not, everything is not what it seems, you know. So chatting with Dr. Bisamba, it was definitely an eye-opening conversation. We learned a lot. You know, from it.
What it is, what it's intended for.
And the risks, oh my gosh,
yes,
the risk, that question where, you know, what are the risks in the drug? Is there a possibility of the drug being fatal? And you see, that is something that as individuals we don't always keep in mind, that, okay, we're taking this drug for weight loss, but apart from that, there are things that can go wrong. And he spoke about pancreatitis.
Yes, he mentioned something else about some sort of, was it organ failure? I don't want to misquote him.
Yeah.
But when it comes to knowing like what is actually in the drug, I think that was a very interesting question. He used a bunch, and I'm going to say it, a bunch of doctor terminology that I was trying to speedily write down just to go research. But I do think learning about what the drug actually is, what goes into making it, and the outcomes of it, the what would you say? The consequences of it, whether it's good or it's bad. I really did enjoy the conversation and what we would have learned today.
Yeah. So that was AM Prime View on this beautiful Friday. Today is February 14th. So happy Valentine's Day to all of our viewers.
We hope you enjoy.
Yes, and have a great rest of your day moving forward.
Yes, be committed to having an amazing day.
I will see you back here Monday morning. Have a good day.
WESN.
Between the Bank and the Gutter, a novel about street dwellers in Port of Spain. This is a book to make you both laugh and cry. Above all, it takes you to that special space that only street dwellers know. In this moving and riveting human interest story, Harry journeys from insanity to sanity while living on the streets of Port of Spain. Now available at Metropolitan Books, 12 Ariapita